Morning, First Wayne. I'm getting my phone out to keep me on track with time. It was just about 3 months ago when I first approached Pastor Cheryl about space here in the church, and a few weeks later, after meeting with some committees and with administrative council, I was here with a group of people moving things into my office here at the church. And ever since that day, since that moment, I've been looking forward to this day, to this moment when I could stand before the entire congregation and express my gratitude. So thank you, thank you, thank you. It has been an incredible blessing. I'm grateful for the space itself. I'm grateful for some office furniture that one of you donated. I'm thankful for how I've been received by each person that I've met here along the way over the past couple of months. And I'm really looking forward to getting to know more of you in the coming weeks and months ahead. But most importantly, as Pastor Cheryl mentioned, I am a father of 5 young children, 10 and under, and my office was previously down in the basement in this large space that also encompassed the playroom of our young kids. So I am grateful to not have to worry about stepping on any Legos, or our IRS determination letters should be coming any day now. I'm grateful not to have to worry about finding that with crayon or marker scribblings all over it. So I'm grateful for this partnership, and I'm also thankful for the opportunity to share here today a word and a little bit of my own story, which you'll see is really intimately intertwined with this ministry of Alive Community Outreach, this new ministry that I'm starting through the Indiana Conference. So I want to take us back in time, to travel back to the 1980s. First of all, because the 1980s were awesome. Can I get an amen to that? Who didn't like the 80s? So these are the days I was still running around wearing Scooby-Doo underwear. I had big curly brown hair flopping all over the place. I have pictures to prove it if you don't believe me. I loved basketball then as I do now, and I would be outside. We lived over on Covington Road. I'd be out there in the driveway, rain or shine, summer, winter, weeks like this, single-digit weather, didn't matter, snowing, I'd be out there shooting shot after shot after shot. I have siblings, 3 siblings, but they're all quite a bit older than me. But I had one cousin, a younger cousin who was 4 years younger than me, named Nicholas, who was like a little brother. And he would always be out there with me shooting baskets. He'd be over at my house. I'd be over at his house. When we were little, we were inseparable. When I got a little bit older, became a teenager, I got involved with my own group of friends, started getting involved with some negative influences and engaging in some destructive behaviors. And that was pretty much my experience in my life throughout high school. Well, when I graduated, I had the summer after I graduated, this sort of Damascus Road experience that really got a hold of me, and I started paying attention, spiritually, paying attention to God, and God got a hold of me, started to get through my thick skull, and I started to get my life on track. Around that time, this is back in 2001, I met this beautiful woman named Marie, who's here today. She continues to keep me in check and keep me in line. And a few years after that, I felt this call to ministry. So life was really heading in this positive direction for me. But meanwhile, my cousin Nick, who I didn't really hang around a whole lot as I got older, but he started to come of age and he started to get in some trouble of his own. And unlike me, he got in a little bit deeper and got in trouble with the justice system. And once he got involved in the criminal justice system, it was like he'd been swallowed up by this black hole from which he was never quite able to escape. And so in 2009, Nick was sentenced to 5 years in prison. That same year, Marie and I and our 1-year-old little girl, Sophia, we were headed down to Atlanta for seminary at Emory. We had a great time in Atlanta. When we went down there, we didn't know what the future held. We thought maybe we would be here for a few years and we would come back to Fort Wayne someday or after graduation. We weren't really sure. But as time went on down there, some doors opened up for us, and we got to a point, we had a few more children, and ministry opportunities became available. And we got to the point where we said, this is where we're going to be. We love our ministry, we love our lives down here, our children are happy, we like their schools, we like our neighborhood. This is where we're going to plant roots. Well, everything changed for us on September 13th, 2016. I remember this day vividly. I remember it like it was yesterday. I was in my parsonage bedroom getting ready to go work out at the YMCA that morning in Decatur, Georgia, when all of a sudden I felt this buzz in my pocket, that double buzz that you feel when you get a text message on your phone. I thought, well, this is really strange. It's 6 o'clock in the morning. Who could be texting me at this hour of the day? I don't know if you get text messages at 6 a.m., but I generally do not. And so I got my phone out, and I saw that it was from a friend from whom I hadn't heard in years. And so now it's even stranger. So I open up the message, and it's a short message, but an ominous message. It said simply, "Isn't your cousin's name Nick Powers? Isn't your cousin's name Nick Powers?" I knew in my heart what this was all about. Because at this point, Nick had been out of prison for about a year. And I knew that he was having some challenges getting his life back on track. These opportunities would present themselves to him, and he would seek after these opportunities, and then they would just become dead ends. And he just kept running up against brick wall after brick wall after brick wall, and started getting involved in some bad things again. Yeah, that's his name. What's going on? And he replied, "You need to check in with your family." And over the next few minutes, I did just that, and I received some of the worst news that I've ever received in my life, that my cousin, my first cousin, Nick, who was like a little brother growing up to me, he was shot and killed here in Fort Wayne along with 2 other young men right on this very street, East Wayne Street, 1 mile east of this sanctuary. He was 30 years old, had 3 young children that he left behind. So this, as you can imagine, shook me to the core. And in the aftermath of this tragedy, I knew that we had to do something. And soon I started feeling this pull, this call to come back to Fort Wayne. I didn't know what exactly we would be doing, what it would look like, where we would live. We just knew that we had to go. And a few months later, we were making plans to be here. Over the past couple of years, we got back in 2017. We've met family after family whose lives have been devastated by violence. Since 2014, here in Fort Wayne, 2014 is the last year that we had a number in the teens, a homicide number in the teens. But since 2014, we've had 203 murders in Fort Wayne. 203, and we've broken the homicide record twice here in the city. We've learned how each murder affects dozens, if not more, individuals. We've learned that many children receive little or no support in the aftermath of losing their fathers, their mothers, their brothers, their sisters, their cousins, their friends, their neighbors, their classmates. We've learned a lot about trauma and the necessity of early intervention through supportive relationships and professional services. We've learned that many families, at least many families that we have encountered in the community, have experienced this devastating, traumatic event, not just once, but multiple times in their families. We've learned that this isn't just a matter of peace and violence, but a matter of racial justice, of economic justice. Violence is ultimately a symptom of some deeper issues that are going on. So we've been learning a whole lot. And I've also been reflecting a lot on this 10th chapter of John, this passage that Pastor Cheryl just read, this well-known passage in which Jesus draws upon this very familiar biblical imagery of shepherding. Jesus refers to himself as both the good shepherd who lays down his life for the sheep and the gate through which the sheep enter the fold. Jesus' audience would have been well aware of these threats, these many potential threats, thieves, bandits, robbers, wild animals that sheep face, and the extent to which shepherds were willing to go to protect their flocks from these threats. I love this passage because at its core, it's about relationship. Specifically, it's about the relationship between the Good Shepherd, Jesus, and the sheep. How much he loves the sheep, how much he cares for the sheep, how far he's willing to go to protect the sheep, even to the point of laying down his own life. The thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy, says Jesus. But I have come that they may have life and have it abundantly. This verse has been playing in my mind like a broken record ever since I entered into this ministry here in Fort Wayne. Because since I've been back, I've been around and I've experienced a whole lot of stealing, killing, and destroying of lives, of families, of entire neighborhoods. Yet I'm stuck with this second part of this verse, this promise, this declaration. That in the midst of violence, in the midst of poverty, in the midst of darkness, in the midst of death itself, Jesus came to bring life. And not just life, but abundant life. Overflowing life is what this verb means. Overflowing life. Now, I sometimes struggle to know, to understand, to envision, to articulate what abundant life looks like for a family who's lost so much. I struggle to understand that, to see that, but God has really given me this sense of peace that that's not my job, or any of ours, for that matter. But what God is calling us to do, I believe, is to embody the love and care of Jesus, to come alongside, to extend our hand, to be the hands and feet of Jesus, our good shepherd who came to bring all of us life, all of us, not just some of us, but all of us in our community and beyond. And so this is what Alive Community Outreach is all about. Our mission is to cultivate a community of nonviolence through relationships and education. Building relationships is at the core of what we're doing. Building relationships with families and with children. The gospel compels us to be in relationship with those who are hurting. But research is also abundantly clear that supportive relationships is at the heart and the most important, in fact, component of healing from trauma. And so we build these direct relationships with children, with families who've gone through this, but we also help to put them into relationship with one another and with others who can be of support in the community. We're offering support groups. We're connecting families with resources and services in the community. And then starting next year, we'll be rolling out some nonviolence education and training focused on children and youth and cultivating nonviolent leaders in our community. And so as we grow this congregation and myself and our ministry, as we grow in our relationship with one another, you'll learn more about the specifics of our ministry. I did leave some brochures back in the narthex at the welcome desk back there. If you're interested in learning more, or I'd love to have a conversation if you want to know how you can help, how you can be of support, how you can be involved. But for now, I simply want to restate my gratitude that all of you here in this congregation are already playing a pivotal role in our work and in this ministry. I want to share before I close something that really had a profound impact on me a few weeks ago. We just started this support group that meets once a month, that meets on fourth Fridays. We have several families who are a part of this. We bring them together, we share a meal with one another, and then we split into two groups. We separate the adults and the children, and this is really a grief support group, but specifically for families who've experienced this trauma of losing somebody to violence. And so we separate the kids and the adults, and leading up to our last group, we were short some volunteers for the kids to help out with the kids' side. I and another pastor from the community are with the adults, and my wife, Marie, and a group of volunteers are with the kids. And they needed some more help. And so I reached out to a friend of mine, an awesome man from the community who's already doing some great work with youth in the community. He's a teacher, he's a coach, he's a youth pastor, he's a great guy, and I don't know anybody more committed than he is to working with youth, and in particular, at-risk youth. And so I reached out to him and invited him to join us and to help out, and he accepted the invitation. He said, I'd love to come and help out with this ministry in any way I can. And so we get to the night, and we're all eating together, and he pulls me aside, and he said, hey, Pastor Angelo, I was wondering if you would mind if I came in with the adults and spent some time with you all. And he framed it in such a way that he wanted to learn from us, from what me and the other pastor were doing. It almost sounded like he wanted to learn some things that he might be able to take back to his ministry. And so I said, well, I'd be open to that, and I'd love that, but we really need you with the kids tonight. Is there a way that we might be able to arrange something in the future, or maybe next month or a couple months from now, at some point you can come and spend some time with us in our group. But tonight, if you could, just to stay with the children, because that's where we need you. And so he was totally fine with that. He said, sure, absolutely, I'll help out there, and we can make an arrangement for sometime next month or in the future at some point. And so we continued eating, and we were just about to break into our groups when I found out that a couple of our families, our larger families who have a lot of children, they weren't going to come. And so we didn't need the volunteer support with the children that we thought that we needed. And so I talked to Marie and said, well, what do you think? He had mentioned that he would like to be with us in the adult room. Do you have a problem with this? Can I take him away from your group for this night? And she said, yeah, that's fine. And so I let him know that, hey, we don't have as many kids as we thought we were going to have. If you want to be with us, that's fine. Come and join us. And only after I invited him into our group, into the adult room, only after I invited him into this, he looked at me and said, I think I really need this for me. And so he comes into this room, this group, and he starts to share about this relationship he had with one of his students that he coached back in the early 2000s. And he talked about how he had lost several kids that he knew along the way to violence on the streets. But this one particular kid was really like a son to him. He's a very gifted athlete, but he was one of these kids that could go one way or the other and really need somebody to come alongside and take him under his wing, and this guy did just that. So this kid was like a son to him, and he gets a call one day in 2006 that this boy was shot and killed by a teammate over a game of dominoes or dice or some game that they were playing. And as he was sharing this story, he broke down. He broke down. And he said that he has never grieved. That he, in fact, hadn't even cried about this since the day of the funeral. This happened back in 2006. And so after the group, I looked at him and I said, you're banned from working with the kids, brother. You can't work with the kids. We won't let you. You need to be right here with us. And so this really opened my eyes to the extent to which so many in our community need healing. We've worked with so many families that are just going through this within the past year or two or a few years. But here's somebody that 13 years ago lost someone and didn't have the support that he needed then. And now all these years later, he's just now starting to grieve. And so I don't know where God is taking this, where we'll go, but I know that I'm already seeing God at work. Friends, Jesus came to give us all life. All of us life. Overflowing life. But there are far too many in our community who are not experiencing that. And so I'm grateful for your heart for this ministry and for opening your doors to this ministry. And I look forward to continuing to get to know one another and continuing to find ways to support one another and to be in ministry together. May the God of peace heal our city. Amen.